What I'd like to talk about in this video is just a really important consideration regarding the bass end of any music that you might be writing. So I've got a couple of different kick drums here. I've got a Roland 808, got a Roland 909, each playing just a 4/4 kick pattern, a little bit like this. If I move that out of the way, just drop the 909 in there, it's going to play with the same pattern. So that's track one. Track two, we've got just one of Live's preset bass instruments, just a preset called Juno 106 bass. Now what I'd like to talk about is the tuning of your percussion instruments versus your bass instruments. So if you just have a look at this clip, we can see that I've programmed in an A. Let's just play those side by side. Now currently, my kick drum is not tuned to the same pitch as my bass instrument. And because of that, when I translate this onto a big system, it's going to sound rubbish, horrible. What I need to do is pitch my kick so that it is peaking the same point as my bass on a spectral analyzer. Obviously, if it sounds good, it is good. That is the most important thing. But using either the dedicated Spectrum device or the spectral analyzer on Live's EQ8, you know, it's a real big helping hand. So let's just have a look at what this 808 kick drum looks like. I've just picked a preset here called Slow Average, and it just enables me to see where the peak's at. So if I just hover there, if you look to the bottom left of the spectral analyzer down here, it will tell you the frequency, which is around, for argument's sake, 48 Hertz, and it'll tell you what note that translates to. So it's telling me that that is a G naught. Now, for those of you that don't have Live, don't have those built-in analyzers, you could just download yourself something like this, which is a MIDI note to frequency conversion chart. So I said about 48 Hertz, and we can see that the nearest to that, 48.99, that translates to a G. So Live has got it spot on there. So frequencies in physics, in science, translates to what we perceive as pitch, as notes in, you know, the realm of music. So 48 Hertz or 49 Hertz gives me a G. Now let's just pop an analyzer on the bass. Now you can see that the main peak here is around 55, 56 Hertz, and that translates to an A. Again, if you don't have Live, we can just have a look. 55 Hertz on the nose is an A. So when I play my 808 kick, which, you know, the fundamental peak, the main peak of my kick is a G, the fundamental peak of my bass is an A, you can see that we're out by a full tone. Now, it doesn't matter which one I pitch. You know, I've obviously just written some really simple music here. I wanted to carry on writing this piece of music. Because I've only got two things playing at the moment, I could either pitch my bass, so it's down to a G, I could pitch my kick drum, so it's up to an A. It doesn't matter which way around you do it. There's two components to a sound. Go back to the drums. I mentioned the fundamental. Now the fundamental frequency, the largest peak, dictates the pitch of the sound that we are listening to. And the overtones or harmonics, this bit here, this component, all these extra frequencies, that's the bit that tells your brain whether you're listening to a kick drum, whether you're listening to a bass instrument, bass synthesizer, or whether you're listening to a piano, strings, guitar, because each source of sound, source of vibration, whatever you want to think of it as, has its own signature harmonic content, overtones, or timbre. So we just need to bear that in mind. So like I said, we're peaking at, roughly speaking, a G here. My bass is peaking at an A. So I can just nudge that up by a couple of semitones. Now if we look, fingers crossed, this should be peaking now at about 55 Hertz, which 54.4, that's near enough. The human ear can actually detect differences of just 1 Hertz. So it's pretty important to get that spot on, but within 1 Hertz, that's going to be fine. The fundamental peak of that 808 kick drum is now an A, and it's going to match up with my bass. Now, if you're having trouble pitching kick drums, what I find quite useful sometimes is if we go up by a couple of octaves first. So if I've got the transposition box highlighted on simpler, if I just hold shift and press up, I'll go up by a full octave. And now if you couldn't hear that clear tone before, you should be able to pick it out a little easier. So I've just pitched up by 2 octaves, or 24 semitones. Remember, there's 12 semitones in an octave. And just incidentally, let's look at where that kick's peaking now. So it's now at a G, a couple of octaves higher than it was. What's that? 190 odd Hertz. Let me play my bass line. And now we can clearly hear that kick drum, the tone of it is not matching up with the fundamental of the bass. Now I've pitched it up by 2. We're getting there, but I can also tune in sense as well. So this is a finer tune than a full semitone. And now you can hear that the tone of the kick is matching the bass. At this stage, I can now pitch it down by 2 octaves to get it much more close to the original pitch of my 808. Go. Peaking at 55 Hertz. Just one thing to bear in mind, let's go shift and up, let's pitch it up an octave. Now when we go up an octave, we double the frequency. So 55 becomes 110. 110 will become 220. Near enough. Every time we double frequency, we go up an octave. Every time we go down an octave, we halve the frequency. So this should be around 27.5. Cheers, there we go. Now what happens if you're working with percussion sounds that don't necessarily have as strong fundamental peak? Like if we look at this 909, we can see that there is a broad low end / low mid region here with no real defined peak. You know, this is the highest point of spectral analyzer around here. There's a little peak there, peak there. So it becomes much more difficult when there's no clear defined peaks within your source sound. It becomes more difficult to pitch those. Let's try just going up an octave. I'm getting a sort of peak there at around 55, 56, but there's still strong content, strong harmonic content, sort of all the way up to 160, 170. So what would it do in this case? Well, what we can do is we can, with an EQ, attempt to emphasize the frequencies that we would like and sort of massage the kick so that it sits a little better with the bass that we've got. This is where we get our MIDI to note frequency conversion chart. So we can't tune it by ear, but remember our bass line is A, so we just look at multiples of A. So we've got 27.5 Hertz, 55, 110, 220, 440, and so on and so forth. So, to attempt to give this 909 kick more A characteristic, I'm going to have a go at boosting 55, boosting 110, and chopping out the bits in between, bringing out the frequencies that I want and attenuating the frequencies that I don't want. I'm just going to push the level in the studio a little bit. So I'm just making 55 Hertz resonate a little bit. So that's the A in one octave. Go 110. Now I'm making the A an octave up resonate a little bit. Now this is extreme. I wouldn't leave these as they are for a final mix. I'm just illustrating the point that you can pull out, emphasize, resonate certain frequencies. There's the A an octave up. So now we're inducing a bit more of an A characteristic in that 909 kick drum where it wasn't there previously. Now in between, I'm just going to have a bit of a mess around here. You'll just find that some frequencies, we can get them to resonate, but they just don't work well harmonically with the other frequencies that I have boosted. That's probably one of them. I'm just going to push the level in the studio again. That doesn't really work, so I'm just going to take a little cut there. Do that again. That doesn't work harmonically either, so let's just take a little nip out there as well. Okay, so let's just mute this bass. That's what we had before. And And you can hear I've managed to bring out the A characteristics in that sound. Absolutely ridiculous boosts. I would definitely tone those down somewhat. But that should sit now a little better. Boosted the frequencies that we want. We've attenuated the frequencies that we don't want. That should sit a little better with the bass. Than this. Now, what I've looked at there is just one tiny aspect of frequency management. We've not taken into account EQing the bass in any way. For example, I'd probably take a bit of a low cut on the bass just to leave room for the kick. We've not taken into account EQing of kick drums at any other points other than, around the fundamental frequency and areas around that. We've not looked at compression, which is another way of getting things to sit together better, sidechain compression. And we've not looked at shaping the envelope of sounds, the volume envelope of sounds either. So just bear that in mind, that this tutorial is dealing with just ensuring that the frequencies of your bass and your kick drum are aligned so that they're both playing the same root note.